Just for laughs, we'll do one of these appendices, which are kind of like, so far we've done one about George Washington growing pot and one about the Illuminati codes. And they all seem to be completely made up to kind of feed the conspiracy theory that is this. And Starla is over there. I don't know if you guys can see her. She's sleeping through this important revelatory appendices of this book. So let's do one. Here we go. I don't know what this is going to be, but we'll find out. Appendix Gimmel, because they all have crazy names. The Illuminati theory of history. This is supposed to reveal that. And here's a quote. And to this day, the proverb is still repeated from the Danube to the Rhine. It is dangerous to talk too much about the Illuminati. That's from von Juntz. Unausprechlichen Kulten. And then another quote is from Adam Weishaupt, who was the founder of the Illuminati, if you've been paying attention. Theoretically, an age of bureaucracy can last until paper shortages develop. But in practice, it never lasts longer than 73 permutations. Weishaupt, Kernighan, Kirchen, and Dummheit. In a well-known passage in the Necronomicon, Abdul al-Hazred writes, They ruled once where man rules now. Where man rules now, they shall rule again. After summer is winter, and after winter, summer. Weishaupt, who possessed only the Olaus Wormius translation in the 1472 Lyon edition with its numerous misprints and errors, found this text scrambled into They ruled once where man rules now, summer. Where man rules now, after summer is winter. They shall rule again, and after winter. Thoroughly confused, he wrote to his good friend, the Kabbalist Kolmer in Baghdad, for an explanation. Kolmer, meanwhile, dispatched a letter to him, answering a previous question. When this epistle arrived, Weishaupt had been experimenting with a new strain of Alamout Black, and was in no condition to realize it was a reply to an earlier query. He was thus ready to accept enlightenment. In the words, Concerning your rather thorny enquiry, I find that in most cases, Concerning your rather thorny enquiry, I find that in most cases, ergo, is the best remedy. Failing this, I can only suggest the path of Don Juan. Weishaupt assumed that Kolmer meant the passage would become clear if he read it while under the influence of ergot. He promptly went down, let's find out what that is. He promptly went down to his laboratory and tossed off a jigger. Then, for good measure, he chewed a few peyote buttons. He was under the misapprehension that the Don Juan referred to was the same Yaqui Indian magician of the 20th century whose mind he had been tapping through the Morgenhautegesternwelt. Peyote was that Don Juan's great teacher, and Weishaupt had imported some from Mexico at great trouble and expense. It should be explained at this point that the question which Kolmer was answering happened to be not philosophical but personal. Weishaupt had sought his advice on a problem much perplexing him that month. The fact that his sister-in-law was somewhat pregnant and circumstantial evidence seemed to mark him as the father. He wasn't at all sure how to explain this to Eve. Kolmer had intended to convey that Adam should give his paramour the ergot, since it often functions as an abortifacient. The alternative referred to the path of an earlier Don Juan and meant splitting the scene entirely. However, the stoned Ingolstadt sage misunderstood totally, and so came to the Necronomicon full of hashish, peyote, and a substantial quantity of ergot, which had, under the influence of the other drugs and his own intestinal juices. What's up, girl? Charlie's doing this thing where she walks around with something in her mouth that is supposed to be edible, and instead of eating it, cries. What's up, girl? All right, Starla left. But we're going to finish this appendix. It mutated into, well, mixed with his own intestinal juices, mutated into ergotine, a close chemical cousin of LSD. The result was that the words seemed to leap out of the page at him, shouting with intense meaning, "They ruled once where man rules now. Summer where man rules now. After summer is winter. They shall rule again, and after winter." Abdul al-Hazred's concept of the Great Cycle, which derived actually from Appendicides, took on kinky edges in Weishaupt's flipped-out cortex. 5 kinky edges, to be exact, since he was still obsessed with the profound new understanding of the law of fives. He had achieved the night. Hang on a second. Since he was still obsessed with the profound new understanding of the law of fives. Since he was still obsessed with a profound new understanding of the law of fives, he had achieved the night he saw the Shoggoth turn into a rabbit. He quickly fetched John Battista Vico's Science Nuovo from his shelf and began reading. He saw that he was right. Vico's theory of history, in which all societies pass through the same 4 stages, was an oversimplification. There were, when you looked closely at the actual evidence behind Vico's rhetoric, 5 distinct stages. Each time the Italian listed only 4. Weishaupt looked very closely, and like Joe Malick, the harder he looked, the more 5s he found. It was then that the man's truly unique mind made its great leap. He remembered that Joachim of Flores, a proto-primus Illuminatus of the 11th century, had divided history into 3 stages. The age of the Father, dominated by law, the age of the Son, dominated by love, and the age of the Holy Spirit, dominated by joy. Where most philosophers rushed to publish their insights, Weishaupt saw the advantage of an alternative path. The law of fives would be kept secret, so that only Illuminati Primi would know about it and could predict its events correctly. But the Joachimite theory could be revived and publicized to mislead others. He, Culmer, Meyer, Amschel Rothschild, de Sade, and Sir Francis Dashwood, the original 5, had some discussions about possibly pushing Vico instead of Joachim, but, as Weishaupt argued, 4 is a little bit too close to 5. Even so, it was quite a spell of years before they found the ideal frontman to push the 3-step theory, G.W.F. Hegel. "He's perfect," Weishaupt wrote in the De Molay cipher from Mount Vernon. "Unlike Kant, who makes sense only in German, this man doesn't make sense in any language." The rest of the story, the exoteric story at least, is history. After Hegel was Marx, and after Marx, the Joachimite 3-step was permanently grafted into revolutionary tactics. The esoteric theory, of course, is different. For instance, in 1914, when the 5th and final stage of Western civilization was dawning, James Joyce published A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. The 5 chapters of that novel not only suggest 5 stages of the hero's growth, but by the alteration of styles from chapter to chapter suggested analogies with other 5-stage processes. This is actually true. I actually read that book, which is a hell of a slog to get through. This was too much for the Illuminati Primi of the time, who warned Joyce to be more careful in the future. A battle of wills ensued, and all through the writing of Ulysses, Joyce was still considering a novel built entirely around the law of 5s. When the Illuminati gave him what they call the Tiresias treatment, blindness, he finally compromised. Finnegan's Wake, when it appeared, broke with the Joachim Hegel Marx 3-step, but did not include the Fundwissenschaft. Instead, the Baconian 4-stage theory was resurrected, a middle path that appealed to Joyce's sense of synchronicity, since he had once taught at a school on Vico Road in Dublin, and later also lived in a house on Via Giambattista Vico in Rome. And then there's a footnote that says, "Do you believe that?" I'm not sure what to believe in these appendices. Now for a few words about the real truth, at least as the Illuminati understand real truth. Every society actually passes through the 5 stages of Verwirrung, or chaos, Zweitracht or discord, Unordnung or confusion, Beamtenherrschaft or bureaucracy, and Grummet or aftermath. Sometimes, to make comparison with the exoteric Hegel-Marx system more pointed, the esoteric Illuminati system is defined as thesis, antithesis, synthesis, parenthesis, and paralysis. The public Hegel-Marx triad is also called the tricycle, and this is bullshit. And the arcane latter two stages are called the bicycle. One of the first secrets revealed to every Illuminati minori is after the tricycle, it comes always the bicycle. The Illuminati are rather prone towards literal translations from Weishaupt's German. The first stage, Verwirrung or chaos, is the point from which all societies begin and to which they all return. It is, so to speak, the natural condition of humanity, an estimation which the reader can confirm by closely observing his neighbors, or if he had the necessary objectivity himself. It is, therefore, also the fundamental thesis. The Illuminati associates this with Eris and also with other goddesses from Isis to Ishtar and from Kwannon to Kali, with the female principle Yin in general. This correlates with hexagram 2 in the I Ching, that is Kun, which has the meanings of receptivity, nature, in contrast to spirit, earth in contrast to sky, female in contrast to male. Thus, although this is the first stage of chronologically, it has the mystical number 2, which is always associated with the female in magic, and it correlates with the second trump in tarot, the high priestess, who represents not only maternity and fertility, but gnosis. The sign of the horns represents Verwirrung because the fingers make a V shape, and the planet or the symbol of Venus also designates this stage, or the zodiac Aquarius, which is, you can see where my thumb is. The second stage, Zweitracht, begins with the appearance of a ruling or governing class. This is the antithesis of chaos, of course, and leads directly into discord when the servile class discovers that its interests are not the same as the interests of the ruling class. This correlates with Osiris, Jehovah, and all the masculine deities, with the symbol of the all-seeing eye, with hexagram I in the I Ching, Qian, the creative, the heavenly, the strong, the powerful, with the male principle, Yang, in general, with the number 3, symbolizing the all-male Christian Trinity, with the 12th trump of the tarot, the Hanged Man, symbolizing sacrifice, schism, and schizophrenia, and with the planet or symbol of Mars, which everybody knows is that. Naturally, a Zweitracht period is always replete with internal contradictions, and somebody like Karl Marx always arises to point them out. On the zodiac, Pisces, and that's the Pisces symbol. The third stage, Unordnung or confusion, occurs when an attempt is made to restore balance or arrive at the Hegelian synthesis. This correlates with Loki, the devil, Mercury, god of thieves, Thoth in his role of trickster, Coyote, and other spirits of illusion or deception, with hexagram 4 in the I Ching, Meng, youthful folly or standing on the brink of the abyss, with the number 11 signifying sin, penance, and revelation, with the 21st trump in the tarot, the fool who walks over the abyss, and with the planet or sign of Mercury, the Mercury symbol. It represents that attempt to resolve the state of nature by unnatural means, an annihilation of the biogram by the logogram. On the zodiac, Cancer. That's the Cancer symbol. The fourth stage, Beamtenherrschaft, or bureaucracy, represents the parentheses that occur when the Hegelian synthesis does not succeed in reconciling the opposites. This correlates with void, absence of any divinity, with I Ching hexagram 47, Kun, oppression or exhaustion, superior men held in restraint by inferior men, with the number 8 indicating balance and the Last Judgment, with the 16th tarot trump Falling Tower representing deteriorations and the Tower of Babel, and with the planetoid or sign of the moon, and a picture of that, on the zodiac Libra and his Libra symbol. The 5th stage, Grummet or Aftermath, represents the transition back to chaos. Bureaucracy chokes in its own paperwork. Mind is at the end of its tether. In desperation, many begin to deny the logogram and follow the biogram, with varying degrees of success. This correlates with Hermaphrodite, with I Ching hexagram 59, Huan, dispersion, dissolution, foam on the water, with the number 5, union of male and female, with the 6th trump of the tarot, the Lovers, indicating union, and with the sun or its symbol, and then that, which presumably is the sun symbol, on the zodiac Virgo, the Virgo symbol. Since the association of these references and their bearings on history may be a bit unclear to some readers, we will give further details on each stage, and that will be a separate thing.